Hello, welcome to the Winners in Business podcast, where we celebrate and learn from those who turn their dreams into success stories. I'm your host for this episode, Fred Solar, where each week we sit down with business leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators who've mastered the art of winning in today's competitive world. After all, this is Winners in Business, where winning is more than just a goal, it's a mindset. A huge thanks to our sponsors for supporting this podcast. First, there's Beachfront Custom Development, leaders in software and mobile app development. For over 23 years, they've worked with big names like Coca-Cola, Warner Brothers, and the NFL, as well as building software and mobile solutions for growth stage companies in industries like healthcare, financial services, education, and gaming. For top quality development at any stage, head over to beachfrontcustomdevelopment.com. And let's not forget Impact Business Marketing. If you're fed up with agencies that overpromise and underdeliver, these guys are the real deal. No contracts, just results. From websites to SEO, online marketing, social media, they've got you covered. Visit impactbusinessmarketing.com. You won't regret it. In every episode, we dive into the challenges that many business owners face, whether it's scaling a company, staying ahead in the digital age, or building a strong team. And we uncover the strategies and tools that make overcoming these obstacles possible. Our guests share their battle-tested insights so you can learn how to win in your business, no matter the odds. Before we dive in, let's make sure to follow Winners in Business on your favorite podcast platform and visit us at winnersinbusiness.com for more resources, exclusive content, and updates. Let's get ready to win. Today's guest is Doug Bates, president of CMIT Solutions of Atlanta Southern Crescent in Atlanta Northwest, a company he founded in 2009. Doug brings over 22 years of corporate experience with notable roles at Lego, GE Lighting, and Tyco, where he held global VP positions, launched rebranding initiatives across 51 countries, and secured patents in lighting and product design. In addition to discussing how he's grown his business and earned numerous awards for growth, service, and expertise, he will be sharing his expertise on maintaining business resilience, creating a customer-first sales motion, and some great insights for business owners to get to the next level in business. Success and future priorities, sponsored by Beachfront Custom Development, a leading experiential tech company that specializes in combining expertise in human behavior with superior technology development. My name is Fred Solar, and I'm humbled to be your host today. And today's guest is Doug Bates, president of CMIT Solutions of Atlanta Southern Crescent and Atlanta Northwest, a company he founded in 2009. Doug brings over 22 years of corporate experience with notable roles at Lego, GE Lighting, and Tyco, where he held a global VP position, launched rebranding initiatives across the country, and secured patents in lighting and product design. Doug holds degrees in business administration and speech communication, is certified in Six Sigma and Lean Process, and a graduate of GE's Crotonville Leadership Program. He's also deeply involved in the community, serving on boards and mentoring through local chambers and schools. Since founding CMIT Solutions, Doug has grown the business to over $4 million in revenue and earned 18 awards for growth, service, and expertise. His company is HIPAA and FINRA compliant, with Doug conducting cybersecurity audits and presenting on network security for small and medium. Doug lives in Atlanta with Angie, his wife of 37 years, and both of his children, Kristen and Nathan, now work alongside him in the business. Doug, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Fred. Wow. I didn't realize I was that old with all the stuff you rattled off there. No, but honored to be here. Honored to be invited. Looking forward to today.
Well, outstanding. Well, obviously you have quite the business experience and accolades, but let's start with you personally. Tell me a little bit about growing up in St. Louis, how you met Angie, and how you got to Atlanta. From what I understand, it's quite the journey.
Well, yeah, it's been my dad worked for Monsanto, which was headquartered in St. Louis, so I moved there before I was 2 years old. Lived in one house. My parents separated and they got divorced when I was 5 years old. My dad stayed in St. Louis, but finished high school, went to Lindenwood College at the time, now Lindenwood University. Played sports all through high school and college. When I got out of school, being the youngest of three children, I needed to do my own thing. So I ended up taking a job in Dallas, Texas. So I packed up my 1972 British Racing Green Chevy Monza hatchback and drove to Dallas and got a little efficiency apartment and started working in the distribution industry for a company called Tremel Crow Distribution. They're a public warehousing company, had a number of locations. Tremel Crow was big real estate developer, commercial real estate developer back at that time. And after I was in a management training program there, and when I was in one of the rotations in sales training, I met my wife. She was in customer service there, or my future wife, or Angie. And we met there in the office, had somebody introduce us, took her to I called her down to my office, invited her to a matinee of Lady and the Tramp. We went to that and a dinner at soon to be defunct TGI Fridays, and told her we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. And she fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And here we are 37 years later.
Wow, that's great. So, but you didn't just end up in Atlanta. It sounds like you moved quite a bit.
Yeah, we actually, so being in a sales career, and her being able to work wherever we went, I started with Lego Toys, or Lego Systems Inc. in Dallas, as a sales rep. And then Lego moved us to Connecticut, where I ran a territory in Connecticut and Western Mass and Eastern and Upstate New York and Vermont. And then Angie became pregnant with our first child, our daughter Kristen, and we wanted to be back closer to family, and Lego chose not to move me. So I switched jobs and ended up working for GE Lighting, moved to Jackson, Mississippi, was there in sales with them for a couple of years on the lighting division on the commercial and industrial side as account manager. And then went from there to Wisconsin with increased responsibility, national account manager, and then moved into retail market segment management, moved to Dallas for a year, and then got promoted to product management, where I really got expanded outside of the sales process and got more into marketing and product management and pricing. So I spent 2 years at headquarters at Neela Park for GE Lighting in Cleveland, Ohio. Then went from there to one of my former bosses was working in the aluminum extrusion industry and asked me to come work for him. So I went to work for Werner Aluminum, and we moved, also make Werner ladders, but we didn't do the fiberglass pole extrusion. We sold the aluminum extrusion. Moved to Alabama, and we lived actually in West Georgia. Did that for a couple years, and then a boss was in cleaning up all the stuff from Kozlowski and the whole Tyco mess, a number of years ago, 20 years ago, and asked me to come help them solve all those problems. So moved to New Jersey for working for Tyco for their in one of their plastics division for A&E products, and we sold plastic garment hangers. Sold billions of plastic garment hangers around the world. So lived in Jersey until that business sold. They sold it to a competitor, and then took a buyout as a member of the management team, and then moved back to Atlanta. We wanted to get someplace warmer, closer to family. The kids liked Georgia. I went to work for Acuity Brands and Cooper Lighting down here for a couple of years. Then the economy hit, was last in, highest paid sales guy. And they said, hey, you're doing a great job, and then I had an option to move to Houston to go work for a division of GE Aero with a former boss, and decided I was going to do my own thing and control my own destiny. And that's how we connected with CMIT. So the first 22 years, I think we moved 12 times, 8 states. So it was exciting. I was blessed. I lived in Hong Kong for 6 months when I worked for Tyco, cleaning up, renegotiating all the contracts, redoing the whole sales and marketing, pricing, product infrastructure for the plastics, for the garment hangers. I spent time in Bangladesh and Central America, and truly blessed the opportunities that I was presented with and was able to participate in. And then now I hung up a shingle and started our business from scratch, and almost 16 years later, here we are. And we just opened a second location with my son. He's now back in the business. He played in the minor leagues for 8 years at professional baseball, and through the ups and downs of COVID and Tommy John surgery and all that good stuff, and then met a woman and decided to get married, and just said he wanted to come work for me. So I made him interview, made him buy in, made him work for somebody else for a couple of years, and now we're working together.
That's great. So 16 years, CMIT Solutions. Tell me about the business. Tell me what you specialize in. Tell me about what you love about it.
The love is easy. I'll tell you that in a minute. But CMIT is a franchise. It's a national, 200 and some locations at this point. We are outsourced IT services for small and medium businesses. We're what's called a managed service provider, or an MSP in the industry, and we support small and medium businesses. Our smallest client is one. Our largest is 350 employees with 8 locations in 6 states. So we started from scratch, just networking and meeting local businesses. And I think that's what I know that's what I love the most about it, is that, growing up in one community and then moving around a lot, I kind of missed that. So I call it being happily woven into the fabric of the community. So the clients that we have, they become friends. We help their business survive. COVID, could have hurt a lot of people. We put 800 people roughly on remote support in less than 96 hours, getting everybody set up so our businesses and our clients could still function. I didn't charge any overtime for that because it wasn't anything of their doing. I didn't feel right to take advantage of the situation, but we've just been blessed. We've won Small Business of the Year for a couple of different chambers, a couple different times. We've actually been Small Business of the Year in 2 chambers at once, which had never been done in this area. Got a great staff. My VP of IT services started with me as a part-time tech, and I told him if he was good as his resume was, that I was pretty good at selling and building a business, and if he would commit to me at part-time to start with, that we could make a go of this. And he just celebrated his 15th anniversary with us a couple of weeks ago. And I love it. I love the relationships. I love that we matter. I really enjoy the B2B relationship mindset. It's more strategic. It's more relational, long-term. We're on retained contracts with our clients, but I give everybody a 30-day out because I want to make sure my team stays frosty and we're doing our job. I don't want to feel beholden to a contract to stay with me. Industry attrition for clients is, acceptable at 10%, which I think is abhorrent. I don't want to lose 10% of my client base every year. Heck, that's a lot of work to go out and rebuild relationships. And, we're not going anywhere. I'm not looking to sell the business. I'm looking to run it and, work with my son. My daughter is our director of marketing. My wife has done the books since we opened and the HR management. So she's involved in the business. She protects us from that. Everybody's heard horror stories of small business owners who trust people that they've known, that steal from them and hurt their business. And, not to say that doesn't happen with spouses, but 37 years in, I don't think she has the energy to train another husband. So, if she takes money out of the business, it's either going to her or the kids, which I'm good with. So, it's truly a family feel. We've got office cats and dogs in the office, and I'm living my best life. I'm just so blessed.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So, you pretty much described the entrepreneurial spirit and just the perfect scenario, right? Working with your family, working in a business you love, the clients you love, providing a good service, and just continuing to build a business. That's awesome.
What's funny, Fred, is that I don't fix anything. I have no IT skills. My job is to take care of the sales, the customer service, the business side of it, and let my technical staff. And I tell clients that right up front. I said, you don't want me touching your stuff. You want me you want my team doing it because they're really, really good. My job is to make sure they're really, really good. But that's what I think helps us is that, a lot of IT companies are run by people with an IT background, and they sometimes get conflicted by the technology, where that's never a conflict for me. I want to do what's right for the business, what's fair for both businesses, what helps them grow and be successful and make money. And so my VP of IT services and I will debate right in front of the client. Sometimes he'll say, well, I think they should do this. And I'll look at him. I'm like, why would we spend money there? That doesn't make any sense. That won't pay for itself. I think we should look at this, or let's, revisit in 6 months. And so I think that makes us a little bit different, but that candor in front of the clients is what I think helps build our relationships with them.
Well, it's authenticity, right? I mean, it sounds like you built your business on authenticity, and just being able to just being able to share some of your your strengths and non-strengths. I don't want to call them weaknesses. I mean, being able to share that openly is something a lot of people don't do in the business world because their fear of rejection or just feeling vulnerable to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my proudest dad moments in the business since Nathan has come in is one of the things I used to tell him and tell my wife when we first opened the business, when everybody was making suggestions about how to grow faster and do other things. And I would say, no, we will fail doing this business right before we succeed doing it wrong. And we were at a chamber event, and Nathan said that to a client verbatim. And it was one of those things like, oh my gosh, he does listen to me on occasion. It was awesome that he picked up on that and understands that. I've always tried to tell him that once you lose your integrity, there's no going back. There's a lot of other things you can lose, you can get back, but your integrity is never one of them in your reputation.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story. And I think we all wonder if our kids listen from time to time, but it sounds like you've been successful, at least in some areas.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got one.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, sometimes it feels like we don't have any, but
that's right.
Dad doesn't know much, or mom doesn't know much, but then it reminds me of a story that my father once told me, or I kind of a shared experience. I think I was 25 at the time, and I was out of college, and I went to Clemson, and my brother went to Clemson behind me, and he was just making some stupid decisions and doing stupid things, and I just kind of was talking to my dad about it. He goes, you know what? He goes, don't worry about it. You were like that too. You were something, and he used a much stronger word.
Yeah,
you were something like that too.
Yeah.
And so there's hope for him.
Yeah. I used to always tell Nathan. So I said, son, it's not a matter of if you're going to grow up. My only question is when.
Exactly. It's a great story. Well, good for Nathan. Good for you instilling those morals and values into him. So. Well, that's great. So, obviously you've probably seen, massive changes and especially now with the advent of AI, but what should senior leaders like yourself, entrepreneurs, what should they be doing to prepare themselves for the future? The resilience. There was a great book, Culture Code, and Simon Sinek has written on it too, about resilience in business. And, you mentioned GE. GE's had a tough time staying resilient over the years, right?
Right.
Innovation, resilience, those are buzzwords, unless you're really paying them attention. What would you advise your clients and what you're doing with your own business to maintain that resiliency and innovation?
Yeah, what I really focus on is with our industry changes so fast. Like you mentioned, AI is just, everybody's like, AI is the new buzzword. It's what cloud was, 10, 12 years ago or 15 years ago. Because ironically, when I was doing my due diligence to open a small, business that supported small businesses, everybody was like, oh, IT for small business will be gone in 10, 15 years. Everybody will be in the cloud and nobody will need IT support. And here we are 15 years later, and people need us more now than they ever have. AI is the same thing. AI is going to transform the world. You're not going to have to do anything. Everybody's going to be out of a job. It's going to take over. It's not the case. AI does a lot of good stuff. But AI also does a lot of bad stuff. The cyber criminals are using AI to find ways to smooth out their messaging. It used to be, 10 years ago, you'd have an antivirus and you'd get an email that come in that said, from, a Nigerian prince or, something like that asking for money. And they were pretty obvious to the scams and the hacks were pretty obvious to identify. And some people still fell for them, but they're, if you looked at the language, the colloquialisms, the syntax, it was always off, right? That's not the case anymore. It used to be somebody would hack in and they would try and steal money right away. Now, last year it was 170 days on average. Now it's up to 210 days on average that they will sit in your network and gather information and look for the type of stuff they're looking for. And they'll take all of your email, history and dump it into AI and say, craft a message, an email from Fred to Doug, telling him he needs to change the bank account or the routing number. And so now it's using the nicknames, the colloquialisms, the joke, the personal intonation that we've used over the last 6 months, to try and trick us into doing something without picking up the phone and making a phone call. There's deepfakes now. They're taking all the social media video and now doing deepfakes. These people are calling and they're, people are answering the phone with their name or information and they don't respond and they're just taping that so they can piece together voiceovers. It's just crazy what criminals and bad actors are doing to try and get into networks. And so I preach to our clients all the time, education. And that's what we try and do is just educate. This is what's going on. This is the direction. These are the tools that we have available. The one thing I can't do for them is I can't tell them where the line is for how much they need to spend or how serious they need to be, because if they lose their business, that's their decision, right? I can't tell them, I can't weigh that risk for them. I can only give them the numbers. A breach for a small business, 60% go out in less than 6 months, 80% go out in less than a year, 90% go out in less than 2 years. Cyber criminals are attacking small businesses because they've learned that the big companies have spent the money and infrastructure to prevent it, or if they do get in, the dollar amounts they ask for are so significant, they get on everybody's radar, Interpol, FBI, everybody else. Now with small businesses, they'll go in, they'll sit in there for 6 months, they'll get into your banking records, they'll watch your cash flow transactions, see how much money you have, and then ask for 85 or 90% of it. Smaller transactions, knowing you can pay, and so they're so much smarter about it. So education is critical. They need to listen and open their minds, and not just what I'm telling them. I just send links a lot of times. Hey, check this out. Let me know what you think, what you want to do, what your thoughts are. And then, we just stay the course. We have to stand ever diligent on the edge of the network to try and make them aware of what's out there and what tools that have been created to help them so that they can make the decisions that's best based on their risk profile for their business and their personal experience. And so those conversations are the conversations we're constantly having with our clients in our technology business reviews. It's not so much about, hey, look at this new sexy stuff, or here's these new faster computers, or it's like, here's what they're trying to do, here's how they're trying to get to you, and here's the tools that we have to protect you. Where do you want to draw the line? What do you want us to do? How do you want us to help? And we've walked away from clients that say, I've never been hit. I don't think I'm going to get hit. I'm not worried about it. And I walk away because when I get that phone call that they've been breached and they haven't taken my recommendation, and they're like, I don't know what to do, or, sorry, is there anything we can do now? I'm speechless. There's nothing I can do, and I dread that phone call. So we've walked away from clients over the last, more so since COVID, where it's just break fix clients, where they're not under retained contract and we don't manage their network. We've walked away from the majority of them just because when they call and say, hey, somebody just hacked into my network. We got one this morning. My email was hacked. What can you tell me about this? We don't manage your email. They can get in if you don't have the right tools in place. But I wish I could help you, but I can't. Those conversations hurt. So we try and do what we can to prevent them.
So cybersecurity is obviously a critical component to maintaining maintaining a future-proof business. What else besides that, right? So, you've grown the organization, even probably before cybersecurity was as incredibly important as it is now. And there's other components that I would assume that you would fall on as critical to maintaining that resiliency, right? Because cybersecurity is just the tool, but what about
that's right?
Right? What
It's just a widget. That's what I tell my guys all the time. I said, IT's just a widget, guys.
Yeah.
But that's a great question, Fred. The way I look at it, one of the things that is lost in our society over the last 10 or 15 years in our culture is really being sincere about customer service. You see it in the restaurant industry. You see it in a lot of places where the degradation of service just happens. And, we're a customer service business, and the widget we provide is IT services, and it's a critical one. But, one of the things that I make sure my brand is really important. My guys they're all W-2. I don't use contractors. I don't use offshore help desk. I don't use third party. My brand and the customer service we deliver, that's what I focus on. I don't ever tell them how to solve the problem, but I do tell them how to dress, how to talk to clients, how to communicate, how to report their time, how to, track all the information. So when we need it downstream, we have it available. I learned a long time ago that without documentation, that's, Six Sigma teaches you data-driven decisions. If I don't have data, I've got nothing. And so we really focus on, the quality of the information that we gather, communicating, data-driven decisions. We don't get emotional with clients because it's easy when somebody's been hacked or breached or their computer's down and they've got a deadline and their monitor's flickering. They can get very emotional at times. And we just need to remind them that it's a process, and they just need to, I tell people, it's an old movie, Mr. Mom, with Michael Keaton and Terry Garr, who actually just passed away, but he was Mr. Mom, and his kid had a whoopee. It was this warm, fuzzy blanket that he felt safe in. And I said, that's what we do. We provide whoopies to our clients. That's our job. Make them feel warm and safe and let them know everything's going to be okay. So when they call in and they're scared and they're cold and they're nervous and they don't know what's going on, we just take a deep breath, lower our heartbeat, wrap the whoopee around them, and make sure, we walk them through the process. And I think that's a lost art, in a lot of different industries as far as how to really interact and make sure the client is taken care of. Doesn't mean they're always right, but always treated with respect. And that's what we focus on. That's always been my mantra, is always about, respecting everybody. Sorry, I'm rambling, but we have this we don't have a very large workforce, but we've got 11 employees, and it's a very, very diverse. I mean, we've got veterans and members of the LGBTQ and minorities and women. And I mean, it's a very diverse. And I tell people, I don't care what your political affiliations, what your personal beliefs are. Nobody disrespects anybody in the office, and nobody disrespects any client. If you do that, then we're all going to get along and focus on solving the problem. We'll be good. The rest of the stuff is just noise. Don't let it interrupt what our focus is, which is taking care of the client and doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it's I use the word, instead of vendor or client sort of, it's a partnership, right? And it's that mutual respect. And, I would say that as good as your business is, there have been times when something hasn't gone the way you kind of had hoped or had communicated it would. Something went awry, whatever it was. But if there's a trust factor and a belief factor that, my partner has my best interest at heart and I trust them, even though they may have messed up, you'll find a better relationship from a business perspective. And that's the kind of people that I would want to choose to work with versus you mess up or something and they, they don't have the trust or they've got a demeanor that's totally different and, they're yelling at you and, and it's almost in a personal manner, right? People get
Right.
emotional. I'm scared my business got hacked or whatever, you know. But if it's about that trust, that authenticity that I've seen with you, and then that sincerity that you're talking about as well. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and my dad taught me, he was a longtime corporate sales and marketing exec, and he taught me very early in my career that the difference between a good sales rep and a great sales rep isn't very much, but it's the ability to deliver bad news as good as you deliver good news. Anybody can deliver good news. But, when you have bad news and you've got to go in, you've got to deliver that, and you've got to be able to come up with plans to resolve the issue, either prevent it from happening again or recover, that's what's critical. And statistics still show, even after all these years, it's really funny. I'm old enough to have gone through 4 or 5 different generations of how to sell books, and now they're talking about the new relational sale. It's really no different. My mantra has always been you have to manage expectations. If you manage expectations, good or bad, you will have a great relationship. And people want to do business, to your point, Fred, which is spot on, with people they like, know, and trust. Still today, even Gen X and Gen Y and Gen Z, they still want to do business with people they like, know, and trust if given the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
So you have to have a high say-do ratio, and if you don't, you're not going to survive. I mean,
Absolutely.
being a small business owner is hard enough to try and do it on a web of lies and deceit and shortcuts.
Well, I mean, you bring up some great points, and I think you also mentioned AI, right? I would be remiss if we didn't kind of touch on AI because it is on everybody's radar. You're probably educating clients, but as somebody who's seen the deep fakes and all of the bad actors and what they're using AI for, where do you recommend or do you believe that AI can be impactful to a business that you would 100% support and discuss?
Yeah, well, that's again, great question. So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of use for it when you're trying to be creative and you have some ideas you can throw. AI, the most important thing people need to understand about AI is it is garbage in, garbage out. It will do a great job of regurgitating back to you from the data that it has access to. So when you're trying to do something in AI, the more information you can give it, whether it be I want to draft a Thanksgiving email to my clients and I want to discuss these 4 points, it'll do a great job of drafting that email for you and starting point. So it helps, is very, very beneficial in time management and saving time for projects because you can, verbally throw a couple of ideas into the system and it'll kick out a template and then you can just edit that template, and which can save you hours from having to draft from scratch. So there's some really great advantages. There's a AI for sales forecasting and AI for, customer forecasting and, what are the probabilities and, all of those types of things to try and help us make better decisions. AI is great for. What most people don't understand, though, is that AI is open source. And so if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be careful with AI because if you use ChatGPT, for example, well, everybody has access to whatever you put into ChatGPT as soon as you throw those parameters out there. You can buy subscriptions to privatized AI that you can use for your own benefit to help you, establish a new business or flush out a new idea that can be protected. So there's the general use AI, which a lot of people can use and get benefit from it really easily. But then there's people from a business perspective, you want to make sure you protect your intellectual property because even though you're using AI, if you use the wrong format, you can lose it. And there's been a number of cases where that's happened.
That's a great point, right? I mean, is that something that you're counseling your clients on, right? Is to maybe set up a private infrastructure for using AI?
Yeah, we've done all, especially there's a couple of startup entities and organizations here in Fayette, Coweta County, and we haven't done any yet up on the north side, but on the south side, 1,000 Cups and Startup Fayette and some other where we go and we talk to young entrepreneurs or the people that are trying to do startups and talk about the pros and cons and how to go about cost effectively protecting their intellectual property in those resources and giving access to those resources, because you can lose control of it really, really quick. All it takes is, one slip to chat GPT, and next thing you know, your idea's gone. You can't patent it, or you can't, somebody's out ahead of you because, again, it's global. For years, overseas, notoriously China and India will reverse engineer something or get information and start working down a path because they've got very low cost resources to do that. And so you have to be really careful when you want to protect your ideas, when you're dealing with the internet and AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for the insight on AI. I mean, I think that's, like I said, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it. And
It's the bane of my existence right now.
I would imagine it is for good and bad, right? But mostly for bad.
Yeah. Every time we get updates from the FBI on cybercrime, and every time I listen to them, it just scares the crap out of me where it's going. But we've got some really smart people in our vendor and our product stack and my team, that are working to diffuse stuff for the masses. And so a lot of the enterprise level products are the move to the smaller market is that gap is shortening, that time frame is shortening. So a lot of times we're having access to products faster than it used to take 20 years for products to move from enterprise down to small business, and now that's moved to 5, and in some cases even less than that.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And I counsel as a CRO for a company called Simulus AI, which uses human digital twin technology. And one of the things that we encountered and made the news too was over in I don't know, I can't remember if it was in China or Singapore, but they were on a Zoom call, I guess, and somebody deepfaked the CFO to the authorized $25 million to be released by the president. It was just insanity, right? And so
that was in Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong. Yeah, that's
Yep.
I remember it being over there.
Yeah, 20. There's 20 members of his team were all deep faked on the Teams call.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's always the first question we would get is, how can we preserve our, authenticity and preserve our, our twin, our human digital twin from being accessed and authorized in a nefarious manner. So thanks for sharing that information. Let's turn a little bit more towards your business, and obviously in the IT services, being an MSP, you've got to have the right tech talent, and there's somewhat been this tech talent shortage. You mentioned not using nearshore or even offshore resources, which makes it you shrink that talent pool even more. How are you overcoming that obstacle as a leader within your organization?
Well, that has been the number one challenge that I've had. Obviously, since I can't do the technology, and I'm blessed with my VP of IT, as good as he is, he's actually probably the leading technician in all of CMIT. We've pioneered a number of products that are used system wide and very well respected in that regard. But it's been a challenge. It usually takes 3 or 4 times in trying to hire a technician to find one that has the skill set and then also fits in the culture. We're not a 9-to-5 shop. My guys are all salaried. My comment to them always is solve the problem first. Let me take care of everything else, the billing, everything else. We do have metrics, KPIs that we track that tie to customer service and our goals for being in good customer service. But that's been the biggest challenge is finding people that have the desire to work, the desire to want to treat the client right, and then have the skills. So we've actually had to revert more recently is focusing on the fit first and then having to train them up as opposed to trying to find somebody to come in and do the work. My gosh, since COVID, horrendous. I mean, we've had people that are like, oh, I don't want to see customers. I don't want to, I want to work remote only. We're an office environment. So my guys have to come into the office. We have one guy that lives in downtown Atlanta and one tech that supports our north side that do some hybrid work where they're here a day or two a week and then remote the rest of the time when they're not on client sites. But I mean, it's an office environment. The collaboration, the camaraderie, the teamwork, that cohesiveness is important to me. I want to be able to see, look, feel, touch. My communications background, mass communications. I want to read body language. I want to, make sure they're, in between, their personal cues as far as is there anything going on in their personal life? Is everything okay? We do a thing on our staff meetings on Monday morning called roundtable. At the end of the meeting, everybody just goes around and talks about what they did over the weekend. And just to share and get to know and build that bond and that trust with each other that, hey, we're all in this together. And we have some very wild stories, again, very eclectic and diverse base. So we get some interesting stories, but I mean, it's kind of that family environment. And that's what I tell, candidates when we hire. I'm very direct. This is not a politically correct environment. We treat people with respect regardless. We don't fall into all the political traps. But if you act like an employee, you'll get treated like an employee. And having managed a hundreds of $1 million global business, I know how to do corporate and treat people like employees. I said, but if you act like family, you will be treated like family. And, and so those are the ones who stay and flourish with us, the ones that, don't want to drive to Atlanta, don't want to work in that big corporate environment, don't want to deal with all the crap that's now in our, media influencers that are influencing how we talk and treat people. And it's just take care of the client, get paid a fair wage, have a little fun while we're doing it, and at the end of the day, go home and kiss our loved ones. That's really what we try to be about.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you brought up something that I want to come circle back to, which is, you mentioned earlier the relationship, the family. One word you didn't use, but you have the background there is communication. I mean, I think communication, technology can be that double-edged sword, and this is kind of what I kind of try to preach to my kids too, is the phone, right? We grew up, we didn't have an iPhone or a Samsung or whatever, Google Pixel or whatever other devices that are out there, and we actually had to communicate to people. We had to talk at the dinner table, and we still do that at home. But you go out into a restaurant and you'll see kids on their phones, and they're it's things of that nature. And I think that has hamstrung the relationship aspect, right? That communication. And it breeds into the business sense as well, where you don't have those kind of relationships. And to me, maintaining that is becoming harder and harder to do. And, I go back to, I'm sure you've had this, people who don't get along within an office environment, it's because they're not communicating. It's because
Right.
they don't see each other in a respectful manner, like you said. And you can argue all you want with people, right? People can disagree all the time. My dad probably voted for somebody different than I did today, right? But there's a respect and love and appreciation, and that's not going to degrade that relationship. So have you seen that? Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. The old saying, it's not used as much as it used to be, which let's agree to disagree. Now you can't disagree. Now it's violent disagreement. Either you're all the way on one side or all the way on the other. And again, one of the things that I learned a long time ago is pretty much everything can be applied to a bell curve. And when it comes to those types of things, the people all the way on either side are the ones that create the issues, and the 90% of us in the middle are the ones that have to live every day and get along and do those things. And so, managing expectations and communication is critical. And my kid, two quick stories. One, when I was working for GE, I had a conversation with a client who asked me to drive a couple of hours to look at a couple of lights that were having problems in this manufacturing facility. And it was a small facility, 2.5 hour drive to go look at 5 lights up in the ceiling. And I said, I said, I can't get there today. I said, I'm going to be in the area next week. We'll do it next week. He says, you need to come out today. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense for me to come out based on the size of your facility. And so he called his boss, and his boss called my boss, and my boss called me and says, Doug, while I recognize and appreciate your direct style, not everyone does. And he said, I don't fault your logic and I don't fault your decision. But, I said, well, I didn't lie. I wasn't rude. I wasn't a professional. And my kids call me Popeye because I am what I am. They were very high level athletes. I was fortunate to be a fairly high level athlete. My wife played sports. And so when they were playing sports, we didn't let them play anything till they were 10. We let them do the playground stuff or backyard stuff first. And then they didn't do anything organized until they were 10. But I was always very honest with them and taught them, you got to look in the mirror and look at yourself. If you're good or not. And if you want to play, but understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. Don't blow sunshine up your skirt, and don't let other people blow sunshine up your skirt as far as your abilities, because you see all of these, and it goes to everybody loving the attention of wanting to be, it's almost like they're asking to be patronized. I want you to tell me I'm good, even though I know I'm really not, but it'll still make me feel better. But at the end of the day, it doesn't help them, and so, if you're a really good athlete, you know who the other really good athletes are, and you know the ones that are full of themselves. And so when I speak, I get invited to talk to schools and entrepreneurship classes and FLBA, FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. And I tell them, I said, your parents probably told you can do anything you want when you grow up. Well, that's not true in some cases, because my son is 6'8". He's never going to be a jockey. Even if he wanted to be a jockey, he would never be a high-level jockey. So you have to find what your God-given skills are, and then a fit that's something that makes you feel good about what you do every day. That's what makes sense. You can't just randomly say, I want to be a NFL. And I see it in athletics all the time with these kids. They early mature. They're really good at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and everybody's telling them how great they are, and they're going to be the next this and the next that. And then they stop growing, or they get burnt out, and next thing you know, their whole personality and their whole world is tied up in being that 8-year-old stud athlete, which is no longer there. And then they turn to drugs, or they turn to, bad people, or they turn to bad habits. And, they're not given a chance to be told that it's okay not to be great at baseball. You're going to be great at something else. Let's just go find that. And find you got to get the right butts and the right seats on the bus. And it just kills me when I see parents yelling at a 9-year-old kid because, he missed a catch and the kid's just not very good. You should be better than this. You got to work harder. And, there's a line where you're outside of your skill set, where it doesn't matter how much you work, you're only going to be so good. And so then you got to go find something else to do. And, that's a hard. 8-year-olds don't understand that when they lose everything, and it's just. I've rambled and gone down a dark path, but communication and telling, being honest with people and kids, and helping them and supporting them and mentoring them and uplifting them, and that's what it's all about. And not telling them what they can't do, but helping them find what they can.
Yeah, no, I think it's impactful, right? I think we all struggle with it with our kids, and wanting to make sure that they're on the right path, and we struggle with it as parents too, to try to give them the best that we can, and help them and encourage, and sometimes there's that line, and we could probably go down a multi-hour, multi-day, multi-week conversation around this, but. Going back to the business side of things, you brought up something that I want to touch on a little bit ago. Your VP of IT is obviously been very significant to you, and you mentioned that you guys have built a lot of product that's in the market, I assume, for CMIT. How do you go about doing that? Right? How are you building product today? Is it all internal? Or are you using other folks to help you? How are you expanding that capability and that skill set?
Yeah, a little bit of a misunderstanding. And we don't necessarily build it, but he vets it. So he is a great product manager. there are a lot of products out in the marketplace, up and coming in technology all the time, that everybody's this, everybody's that. He is really, really good at vetting them. He did software development back in the .com era before it burst, and then went into network admin. So he's got a lot of that software development mindset. So he can go look at a product and now understanding what our clients need, and then try and marry the two together to find out what's the right product at the right price for the right value for what our market will bear. And so there are some lines that he will not cross. And he's like, I am not going to put a product in a client's network that where I can't sleep at night. I'm not going to just switch from this MDR product, managed detection and response, to this just because it's $1 cheaper and it checks the box. It's only 80% as good and it's going to leave them vulnerable. So he does a really, really good job of educating me on the strengths of the technology and the advantages to the client that allows me to help monetize it and then be able to share it with the clients with the right value for the clients that we serve. And we don't, there are people that think we're too pricey. We've got 7 products in our standard stack, and some MSPs only have 3 or 4. I'm okay with that. You don't want what I've got, but I know when I put my stuff in there, I can sleep at night. That we've taken, beyond best reasonable effort to protect your network for the baseline, and then we can, still add products on top of that if they want or need them. But it's a baseline that, hey, you're taking this. Our email got hacked a couple years ago, our CMIT email, because it's managed out of our franchisor office, and they got into through my wife's email and into our accounts, personal accounts. And fortunately, I happened to be in there, and we caught it within a couple of days, and we got our money back. But I reached out to the home office and I said, how did we not know about this? And they're like, yeah, we don't have these products on there. So they weren't protecting my email to the level I was protecting my client's email. And so we pushed out and mandated for all of our clients. I went to all of them and said, hey, listen, this stuff is real. We're pushing this product out. If you don't want it, that's fine. You can find another vendor, but I can't protect you if we don't have this. And, that goes back to your point a few minutes ago, where it's like, I'm just being honest and candid with them. And if they want to go someplace else, we had a couple people that said, oh yeah, I can't afford it anymore. And, we're not worried about that. And, God bless them. But everybody else is like, hey, great. Thanks for looking out for us. But if it can happen to us, and as an MSP, we're a target, then it could happen to them. And I'm trying to do whatever I can within reason to, prevent that, protect them, and allow everybody to sleep good at night.
Very cool. So I know we only have a few minutes, and this has been really insightful, and I appreciate not only the business stories, but the personal stories as well. I assume, and you mentioned, before I even ask you that question, let me come back to, it sounds like your VP of IT is, and I'll use the word lieutenant because that's kind of the second in command, so to speak, right? Would you consider him like that second in command, that lieutenant that's critical to your success as well?
Oh, absolutely. I learned a long time ago, he'd only been with me 2 or 3 years. I put a key employment agreement in place with him, where based on our revenue targets, he would earn shares in the business. So he's a 10% owner in the business now, has the ability, as we grow, if we continue to grow, to get to 15%. That's the good news for him. The bad news for him is he only gets it when I transact the business. He can't leave and take it with him. But he has definitely invested. His bonus is based on our profitability and our client retention rates. I have a key man insurance policy on him, because if he leaves, I need $200,000 or $300,000 to replace him, to find the right guy, because again, I can't do technology. We joke, and he's my work spouse. We just celebrated our 15th anniversary. When he first started, even when he was part-time, we would talk at 7 o'clock every morning and talk at 7 o'clock every night, kind of recapping the days. And he's educated me, tremendously on technology and how things work. And on that side of it. So I know, obviously, I'm probably a little scary on how much I know after all these years, but I mean, he is absolutely critical. I say he's the technological yin to my sales and business yang. He actually ran his own business when he got out of the .com and was a one-man business, and hated the billing and the hardware purchase, the purchasing and the insurance, and he hated all of that side of it. He just loved doing the work. Well, here he doesn't have to worry about that. He's learned a lot about business from me over 15 years, but he respects that I am the leader. It was my investment, my money, and then I ultimately make the decisions. He's been very, very professional, respectful about that, but he challenges me when I need to be challenged, and I respect him implicitly. He's like a big brother to my son, because he's known Nate since Nathan was in middle school. I mean, it's been a phenomenal relationship. I sat with his mom. Unfortunately, is going through dealing with breast cancer right now, and he was out of town on a vacation that he had scheduled. His mom wouldn't let him not go, and he called me to ask me to sit with his mom for her chemo. And I, before he even finished the question, I said yes. Couldn't think of any place else I needed to be that day, but with his mom. So when I say I'm truly blessed, I mean exponentially truly blessed.
Yeah, well, no, that's fantastic, and I mean that goes. So the question I'm about to ask you was, one of my beliefs is, as an entrepreneur, as somebody, even as a leader in business, is that you have to have somebody that you trust, that partner. Marriage, right? Why am I successful? Or it's because I have a great partner who's been with me for 25 plus years now. And I would assume you would say the same about Andrew. So, in the business world, we also need to have that person that we can rely on, because I just don't believe that anybody can do it alone. Right. And we were built for community. We were built to have that capability. And without that partner supporting you, challenging you, assisting you in covering your blind spots and your weaknesses, you're just not as successful. And so my advice when I talk to people is to find a mentor, find somebody that you can rely on to give you that guidance and experience, and gives it to you just like you were talking about with your clients. It's I am what I am, right?
Yep.
It's direct feedback, and it's not meant to be confrontational, not meant to be, painful or hurtful. It's meant to be real, and it's actually comes from a place of concern and care and love, for that matter. That's something I always try to tell people when I talk to business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs. What is your piece of advice that you would give to business owners, entrepreneurs, to not only succeed, but to get to that next level in business? And you can't take mine.
Yeah, no, you get what you give. When you're trying to build a team, you get what you give. If you give respect, if you give loyalty, if you give opportunity, if you give fair conversations, if you give counsel, wise counsel, and if you give options when you don't have the counsel, maybe point them in the right direction, because nobody knows everything, then you get that in return. If you don't give people respect, if you don't give people opportunity, if you don't give them a fair shake, they're not going to do for you. And there's no reason to. I mean, it goes back to, and for me, that's the team sports environment that I thrived in when I was, younger. And I still play quite a bit, but, you have to have people on your team that you trust, and their role is not the same as you. Not everybody's the shooter. Not everybody's the quarterback. Everybody's got their role. Be comfortable in your role, get the right people in the right seats on the bus, and then trust them. My son, as he's taking on the sales role in this new business, he was calling me a lot and asking me for advice, and obviously I was counseling him. And then finally one day I said, just so you know, starting next week, I'm going to answer every question you ask me with a question. I want you to start thinking through. I trust your instincts implicitly. You need to start trusting your instincts. Send the email before you call me. We'll talk about it after. We'll tweak, we'll converse, we'll, discuss, make the commitments. You tell me where you're going. Don't ask me where you should go. And that's the great thing that Brian and I have and my team has is you tell me how to solve the problem, guys. I'll give you the customer service bend on it, but do your job. I'll do mine. If we do that together, we're going to come out at the end, and when I give them respect, I get respect. And I'm very blessed in that we've got a great team and some longevity. I've got one guy who's wanting to come back. He went to work teaching at his daughter's school, a private school, and doing their IT, and now they're getting ready to graduate. Now he's wanting to come back. And I don't know how familiar you are with Dr. Jordan Peterson, but I'm a fan of Dr. Peterson, and one of the things he said is one of the greatest compliments a parent can get is when their adult children choose to want to spend time with them. So I've got 2 adult children, and they both want to spend time with me and work with me in the business. And again, exponentially blessed. My wife sometimes now, being married 37 years and working together for 15 years, sometimes we have, some clashes because it's harder for her sometimes to get the boss spouse thing differentiated. But the kids, it's been awesome, and I'm blessed. But you get what you give, would be my advice, and you got to do the work as an entrepreneur. I just read. There was 2 Forbes articles this week. One was, as an entrepreneur, there's no such thing as work-life balance. You have to invest in it to be successful. The very next day was an article about successful entrepreneurship. It's got to be maintain your work-life balance. So I just thought that was funny that 2 days apart, 2 articles on the opposite ends of the spectrum. And, there is no work-life balance for an entrepreneur, but that is my work-life balance. I got to go see my son play baseball, but I worked when I was in the hotel, during the day. So I maintained my work-life balance and had my family time. But that's how I did it. But I still was dedicated to doing the job, answering the phone call at 10 o'clock at night when my clients called in the middle of a baseball game, watching him pitch. They call him like, hey, listen, my son's on the mound. I got to call you right back unless this is a 911. They're like, no, call me back. But I always answered the phone. They need to know that their Woobie was there for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer. I jest that money never sleeps, but you do what you do to get the job done, and but you prioritize in the right manner, right? And that's what work-life balance is to me as well. So, one last question, and we've talked about cybersecurity, we've talked about family, we've talked about values, customer service being critical to some technology trends. What do you want your legacy to be?
Man, I'm so blessed, Fred. I'm living it. My son told me when he bought it, he just wrote the check last week to buy into the business as the minority owner. And he said, my goal, Dad, is to buy you out of the business earlier than you want to be bought out. Which what a dad moment that was. It's just like because of all the support that he's given me credit for, and we've made mistakes in parenting. My daughter this morning, we don't see eye to eye on everything political, and so we had some conversations, and I told her stop thinking about the social media. Let's talk. Let's educate ourselves on the topic and have an open conversation. We can agree to disagree. And she called me after she voted, and she said, I just want to thank you for all the conversations we had. It really helped me. A couple of years ago, she said, I would have felt you were judging me. And she said, now I know you're not. And you just want me to be educated, and you're challenging me to make sure that I'm committed to whichever path I pick. And so having those conversations, my son's wife is pregnant with our first grandchild. It's going to be a grandson in February. They told us on a Saturday, on Sunday morning, I was looking on the internet. Sunday afternoon, we were in an open house. Tuesday, we were under contract. 2 weeks later, our stuff was in storage. Our house was for sale. And we moved an hour in Atlanta so I can be within 15, 20 minutes of my kids as they start their families. That's the legacy that I want to be, that they want to call me. They want me to come over. They want me to watch the kids. Growing up in a divorced family, a family of divorced parents where my dad moved away, taught me that that's not the dad that I wanted to be. Not that I love my father and I idolize him, but he made decisions that I don't want to make. I don't want to talk to my kids once a year and my grandkids once every 3 years. I want to be there before then present. And that's the legacy I want to leave, that my kids say that he was present.
Well, that's fantastic, and I would love to emulate that. I try to emulate that. I probably fail more times than I would like, but at least that's the intent, where my heart's at. And thank you for sharing your story as well. And thanks again, Doug, for joining us today on this podcast. It was great getting to know you. It was great learning from you, and we look forward to seeing you continue to succeed at CMIT, and then your son and daughter taking over when it's time.
I appreciate it, Fred. This has been a great pleasure getting to know you. I appreciate the time and the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun. I'm blessed, and I love to share.
Thank you very much, Doug. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks, Fred. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye now. Thanks for listening today as we uncovered the known but not always leveraged customer-first service and what you as a business owner can do now to take advantage of it. We also talked about cybersecurity and leveraging AI, which can make all the difference for business owners who capitalize on these trends. Special thanks to our guest, Doug Bates, and be sure to join us again next time as we have open and candid discussions with winners in business. Bye for now.